This is Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. We have traveled to the Klamath, California area. We're looking for Bigfoot in the Klamath area and the north coast of California. I would like to give you one of the Bigfoot sighting reports that motivated us to come to the Klamath, California area to look for Bigfoot along the coast of Klamath all the way up into Oregon. This was a report submitted by a Daryl Owens. Here's his report. Daryl Owens' 8-year-old son and his 12-year-old friend were out looking for snakes on September 12th when, at about 11:30 a.m., they heard branches rustling and smelled a strong odor. The smell was like rotted chicken. It was awful. When we looked up, we saw the big hairy man standing there, about 100 feet away. He was covered with thick, dark brown hair and was shaking a branch in his hand. We could see his face real good. My friend and I looked at him for about 5 seconds before we turned and ran all the way back home. As the boys turned to head for home, they saw the creature turn and walk into the brush. After questioning the boys, Daryl Owen went to check out the area. As I headed out there, the phrase the boys used to describe what they had seen kept echoing over and over in my head. The big hairy man. Not Bigfoot, not Sasquatch, not even Harry from the movie. Nope. They kept calling it the big hairy man. Looking back on it now, I guess that should have been my first clue there was something very unusual about their story. Sure, it was wild, but somehow it just didn't have a false ring to it. And as for the kids themselves, well, they were not faking what they were feeling. They were scared to death. When I got to the spot where the boys said that they had seen the big hairy man standing, my life was changed forever. As I went out to the creek bed, I figured I'd find bear tracks or nothing at all, in which case I would know that the boys were lying about what they claimed to see. Instead, I looked down and saw these huge footprints in the ground. I just froze. I then came back on Tuesday to make a casting, because when I first saw these tracks I sort of freaked out. I could clearly hear something crunching through the thick brush going up the steep hillside. When I heard that and looked down at the tracks leading in that direction, all I wanted to do was get the heck out of there. The cast measures 16.5 inches long and 8.5 inches wide at the toes, and then around 5 inches at the heel. Owen counted 34 footprints with an average stride of 56 inches. Scott Harriet, from Los Angeles, arrived in Klamath, and the men spent 3 days examining the scene. A few strands of brown hair were found, and then there were the screams. The screams began the night after the boys sighted the creature. These screeches have echoed across the canyon behind our house almost every night since. And there is more than one of them, because you can hear a call, then an answer from another hilltop. The screams usually occur between 9 and 10 p.m. John Green, speaking to the reporter Selk from his home in Canada, said, "Keep in mind, Bluff Creek is only about 25 miles due east of Klamath. It is another world in environmental habitat terms. I don't know, but perhaps the drought has motivated them to travel westward toward the cooler coastline, like other wildlife has done recently." Daryl Owen reported sighting the creature, which looked directly at him from behind some bushes. It had deep-set eyes that were large, close together nostrils, and its face was dark burnt orange in color. The hair was long enough to flow as it turned its head. Scott Harriet returned to Klamath last week, October 12th, and hiked the area with Daryl. Both were armed with camcorders. Scott likens the heavy underbrush to the jungles in Vietnam and says the visibility, even at midday, is poor. Nevertheless, the men found themselves looking at something with red, glowing eyes. The eyes glowed red twice, like the voltage was turned up and then down. The screens have continued nightly, and after the triplicate reporter Steve Selk became involved in the Sasquatch research, a friend of his said he was near Davis Lake in Oregon when he heard the screams for about 20 minutes. This sighting report was reported in the triplicate by Steve Selk, Monday, October 19th, 1992. What I really like about this Bigfoot sighting report is, when my sons were 8 years old or younger, even 12 years old or younger, I knew them really well. I knew their habits. I knew when they were faking a story, and Daryl Owens knew that his son's story rang with truth. Also, he knew that these two kids were scared to death. They saw something that scared them to death, and then just minutes later, he's finding the footprints of where they saw the creature. This is just an amazing Bigfoot sighting report. We love the area. We love Bigfooting in Northern California. I mean, you've got the Patterson video, and then the multitude of sightings. It is number 2 on the most reported Bigfoot sightings in the world. This is a mecca for Bigfoot sightings, and we're going to continue to look for Bigfoot in these parts of California and up the coast through Oregon and even into Washington. The dimensions of the footprint fit the dimensions of many other Bigfoot footprints that our team at RMSO has found, and a lot of these footprints we have also casted. But we find in a couple of areas these 17-inch long footprints, and then they're 7.5 to 8.5 inches wide at the widest point. Sometimes when the toes splay, they get up to 8.5 inches wide up at the toes. And something else that's similar, the hill usually rounds out 5 to 6 inches wide at the hill, and he stated that this hill was about 5 inches wide, which is consistent with a lot of footprints that we find also. Just a great Bigfoot sighting report from a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. I hope you enjoyed this Bigfoot sighting report. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.